We're being told that that nose shape is ugly and you need a nose job if you want to be pretty. And it's a bloody shame because those noses literally tell the story of your ancestors. And that's pretty damn special.
This video is inspired by so many beauty content creators on the internet, but specifically Stephanie Ling.
I know you probably don't believe me because this nose, unfortunately, is the most popular nose shape to undergo rhinoplasty. But trust me when I say you do not need a nose job on a nose like this.
Not because I don't like Stephanie, I actually really do enjoy her content, though I do notice as an autistic woman observing it sometimes can feel a little bit like a fib. And I'm gonna say fib because I think Stephanie is so well-intentioned, but as we say on this channel, the road to hell is paved in good intentions, and I think Stephanie has a lot of really good intentions.
Far from being a flaw on your face, this nose is f***ing intelligent. Not to mention beautiful. There is a theory, which makes sense if you think about it, that if you were born with a Roman nose, which is what this nose shape is technically called, your ancestors may have come from a climate that was hot, windy, and sandy. So places like the Middle East, Spain, Italy, you get the idea. So your ancestors' bodies adapted to this by evolving to have a longer, curved nose that points slightly downwards, which would protect the inside of the nose and the respiratory passage from wind and sand. Hear me when I say this, girls. Your nose is so much more than just being a decoration on your face. Honestly, when you learn about this stuff, the beauty standards don't even matter anymore.
And so I don't want this video to be coming for Stephanie. I want this video instead to be a criticism of her ideas, but not her as a person. So if she sees this, know that I send love and know that I am just pointing out a flaw, I think, in the idea she's pushing. But I think that the root of her idea might be good, but I think we can get it to be better. Let's talk about the expectation of beauty standards when you're autistic and why it can feel like a fib when people tell you to be your authentic self. In Stephanie's latest video, we can see clip after clip of her pushing a narrative that we should just accept ourselves.
Heck, even her widow's peak is gone. The only original part of Sophia that was allowed to stay are her lips, because as we all know, big lips fit our current beauty standards.
She says the only original part of Sophia that got to stay. The only original part. It's kind of like saying a part of the real her is gone, when that's not true. If you lose a limb, you don't become less of yourself. Even though that might feel true in the moment, it's not true objectively. You are still you, even if your body has changed. Because the person you are inside, I don't think is your body. I think the world judges you for your body, but I think it's you, the state of your consciousness, that says so much more about your character. Christina Aaliyah is a YouTuber, and I saw her video on being ugly or being the ugly girl, and she actually said it so well.
I'm a big believer in the fact that literally no one is ugly. Like, unless your character and your personality is literally so shitty that you're a terrible person, okay, then you're ugly, sure. But no one purely on the basis of appearance, in my opinion, is ugly. I think ugly is more of a personality and like a character trait than it is like an appearance thing.
I don't think beauty is what you look like. I think it's who you are as a consciousness. But I understand that the world doesn't operate that way. And as autistic people, we have to understand that when people say be authentic, they're only prescribing a sense of authenticity that makes sense to them and not to us. They're not literally telling you to let down all your walls and unmask. They don't want that version of you. They want the version of you that makes them feel like you're being authentic with them, which is very different than being authentically yourself.
Pretty bloody sad to me, and I don't know what you guys think. Feel free to let me know in the comments, that we as a society praise girls for being pretty, but only once they've obliterated basically everything about them that made them unique to begin with.
Another way to hear this message is you'd be so much prettier if you weren't covered in all that makeup. You'd be so much prettier if you were natural. You'd be so much prettier if you weren't fake. You'd be so much prettier if you didn't feel a need to wear those fake eyelashes. I think it's all well and good to encourage people to be themselves, but what's the difference between playing into conservative narratives about natural beauty versus embracing your authentic self, which might include wigs, nails, and makeup? I think Stephanie is trying to send a very encouraging message, which I think she does throughout this video, but there's a slight deviation in her language which makes me raise an eyebrow. When you are strange, when you're different, when you're not the typical, and when you have features that won't allow you to be the typical, no matter how much contour you use, you struggle to fit in ways that just aren't relatable to even the most average person, so you're in a completely different category. Growing up, I learned to embrace how I looked, and I learned to find a fashion style that expressed who I was and made me feel comfortable. But honestly, asking for help doing my makeup or figuring out my fashion sense was actually quite difficult growing up, and no one around me quite knew how to help me, so I really had to struggle on my own to figure it out. And whether you like it or not, humans have implicit bias, and you have to accept accept that people will judge you for how you look. You can miss out on job opportunities, dating opportunities, friend opportunities, simply for how you look. And though I agree we should absolutely accept ourselves and love ourselves for who we are and how we were born, we also exist in a world where that's not always possible because people have bias and prejudice, and they will judge us simply by looking at us. And we can't wait for the world to deconstruct their judgments on beauty in order to survive. But we can personally embrace ourselves instead of waiting for the world to do it, and still learn to show up in the world in a way that makes sense and doesn't threaten our lives. Not to mention the added difficulty of having like a physical disability, which Rowan Ellis just made a beautiful video on. If you guys want to check it out, I'll link it down below.
Speaking to Bronwen, it became clear that we had very similar experiences when it came to our perceptions of ourselves as teenagers.
Really sort of came together and made me sort of believe that I would never be able to have a relationship because clearly I'm not attractive. Clearly I don't look the way that I should. And, you know, it was actually even, those words were actually said to me, you know, you're never going to get a boyfriend looking like that. Of course, that's become like a fixed internal belief that is it for me now. Luckily, that belief was crushed when someone did ask me out. When I was at school, a lot of the bullying sort of manifested in guys playing games, trying to dare each other to come and ask me out. Or in these sort of really sarcastic ways. It was almost like a daring game or like a bet that they had with each other. And so, of course, for me to know that they see me as some kind of butt of a joke or subject of a game made me think I am literally just a laughing stock, and that is it. There's nothing more to it.
The relationship between attraction, convention, and expectation could honestly be its own entire video essay. Like, where is the line between genuine innate attraction and social pressure and subjectivity?
When we're talking about beauty standards, regardless if we know it or not, sometimes as content creators, we're only speaking to a certain community. So though I think Stephanie is so well-intentioned, her video might not be for people like you and me, but the videos are definitely for someone who needs to hear the underlining message that you're beautiful regardless of what society thinks. Even if realistically we know as like certain types of minorities that there is a game to be played and our survival depends on understanding that game. And this extends to beauty.
I just wanted to throw my 2 cents in on how frustrating it is not to be conveniently attractive in this day and age specifically, and also not knowing anything. So I'm 21. I don't know how to do my natural hair. I don't know how to do makeup. I don't know how to dress. And it's not that I don't want to do these things. I want to, but no one realizes how hard it is, especially like when you ask for help and people are just like, well, do what makes you happy, wear what you want to be happy. But the point is, I want to be happy wearing new things and not look like a fool. I want to wear makeup but not look like a clown. I want to do my hair, but I don't want it to look bad, you know? And when you ask for guidance and stuff like that, it's just so hard. And you try to look up online, and when people don't look like you, they look conventionally attractive, it's so much harder because you're like, this will never look as good on me than it does on them.
And she actually makes a really great point that she wants to be pretty, she wants to dress up, she wants to find fashion that matches her, but she doesn't want to look stupid doing it. And this is so relatable. I feel like this was absolutely me in my 20s. I absolutely wanted to show up looking great and authentic, but I didn't want to look stupid doing it. And trust me, I did look stupid. God knows I should never have left the house with my eyebrows the way they were, but at least I tried. I'm not saying we should shield ourselves or hide ourselves away from the world. If you want to be an activist and protest and show up as you are and demand authenticity to be accepted, that's beautiful. But I also don't think it's wrong for people to be cautious in a world where we have to survive. And sometimes you just have to be in a position where you can actually call stuff out, whether that's racial injustice or beauty injustice.
Tuesday on Being Mary Jane.
I've only been at this new direction 1 week, Greg.
And we don't want to wait a month before we realize that we're drowning.
Has anyone figured out a new angle to my ugly black woman story?
That's not only old news, it's dead news.
I was waiting for that spot.
Sorry.
You look like an ugly black monkey.
Psychology Today published an article that brought into question black women's beauty.
They said we were straight up ugly.
I just don't know why black people get so sensitive. Just do the damn job. Shut up.
But either way, it's always a risk no matter what position of privilege you're in, depending on your background, networking, and resources. Ultimately, who you are personally and at home should be accepting and loving to your authentic self. It's not about how the world sees you, but the person you are when you're socializing, that person, yes, can be authentic, but also has to show up in a world that's bigoted. It's not about adhering to bigotry. It's about surviving through it and accepting that when we come home, we know who we really are. And the irony is that you're not even safe amongst people who share share your illnesses, disability, backgrounds, diagnoses. These people also harbor internalized judgment and ableism. Even if you join other minorities in a group, you can still be judged by them because we're all people learning to deconstruct. It goes without saying that I have had my looks criticized by both autistic and non-autistic women, and I think their intentions are either good or malicious, but sometimes the difference doesn't matter. Sometimes you should keep your opinions to yourselves. And I'm not exempt from this either. I too have shared way too many opinions in public as a content creator that I should have kept to myself.
An even sadder fact is that Sophia is not the only it girl to have fought her face. Look at the LA-based influencers Simi and Hayes. This is them. And just look at these ladies. Born to Palestinian parents, Simi and Hayes, aka Sama and Haya Abu Kedra, were not only blessed to be born rich, but they were also blessed in the looks department. These two girls embodied the beauty of Renaissance painting. These paintings were the epitome of the beauty standard back in the 14th and 17th century. And Simi and Hayes were like real-time replicas of these figures brought to life. That hair, those eyes, those long, elegant noses. In 2025, those girls are long gone. And in their place is the new, improved Simi and Hayes. And as you can see, there is very little left of their original features. Their noses have been halved in size, their eyes snatched upwards, their lips resized, even their curly long hair is no more, replaced by a very chic, straight LA bob. I think this Instagram user summed it up pretty perfectly.
For those who can't see the comment on screen, the comment reads, "From Renaissance beauty to Instagram baddies." Boring. It just feels ironic for Stephanie to agree with this comment when she's trying to uplift these women, but the comment degrades them.
Now don't get me wrong, don't start yelling at me in the comments, please. I will be the first to agree that the girls look utterly stunning now. But I am not going to sit here and lie because otherwise what's the point of filming this bloody video? I think it's a damn shame that the girls felt the need to reconstruct their faces in the first place, let alone in a way that essentially removes all indication of their ancestry and heritage. Especially considering that now their Palestinian heritage is something that they are fiercely and outspokenly proud of. Given what Palestine is currently going through, the girls are very vocal on their Instagram account in support of their ancestral land, which is nice. We love to see it. But what's a little bit depressing to me, and you guys might feel the same, is that had Simi and Hayes felt that pride and connection to their ancestry prior to rearranging their faces, they might never have done it.
As much as I'd like to believe that Stephanie has good intentions here, I also think it's very inappropriate for her to call into question their Palestinian heritage or their love for their Palestinian heritage just because they got plastic surgery. I know Stephanie knows that women are already under so much scrutiny as it is, so I don't know why she's adding her voice to it, except to say that I think she's using this to actually encourage us to embrace our ethnic features without understanding that at the end of the day, maybe we want plastic surgery regardless of how much we love our ethnicity or our backgrounds. So to be clear, they're not less Palestinian just because they got plastic surgery. You're not less you because you changed your body. There's like a pity that comes from her videos that I'm not sure that these women who have had these surgeries are asking for. Now, I believe we should never pity people, but instead we should accept that sometimes people will do things they regret, whether it's cutting our hair, getting a tattoo, or getting a nose job. Sometimes when I hear people talk about plastic surgery, like it's permanent, you'll regret it. I remember hearing that feedback when I got my back tattoo done. It's permanent. Well, we know it's not permanent anymore. And honestly, a lot of plastic surgery is probably not going to be as permanent as it feels right now. But also, what does permanent even mean in an ever-changing world? This is the same argument people use for trans individuals, like, oh my gosh, what if you regret it? Regret is a part of life. And I'd rather go for it and regret than never try in the first place. And so, yes, we want to do things for the right reasons. And yes, maybe go to a therapist before getting your boobs done. But also, maybe just get your boobs done because you know it's the right thing to do. Trust yourself. And if you are doubting yourself, see a professional, get some feedback, and then trust yourself to make the right decision for you. Though I agree with her that there are standards society sets and people feel pressure to adhere to the point of risking their own life or actually passing away.
Fault Lines traveled to Miami, the plastic surgery capital of the U.S., to investigate what's behind a rise in injuries and deaths related to Brazilian butt lifts. Our reporting uncovered a pattern of high-volume surgical centers that appear to be putting profits ahead of patient safety.
The more they lower the prices, the more people are going to come and bite on it.
Dania Placencia died after having a Brazilian butt lift procedure.
She was perfectly healthy 28-year-old girl. Perfectly healthy.
Family members say Dr. Sergio Alvarez performed the procedure.
According to the medical report following Dania's death, Dr. Alvarez was performing 60 to 80 surgeries per month. What do you think when you hear that?
It is an assembly line making money by the tons. has to be stopped by the law.
I do think we should ask ourselves and deconstruct, do I want plastic surgery for me or society? Though I can agree that many people feel pressured by society to get plastic surgery, what about the ones who don't? And are we showing pity, in quotation marks here, to the wrong group of people? Because in her video, she was highlighting like supermodels, famous people, people who want to be famous and are using plastic surgery to advance their career as people we should feel bad for in some way. And I'm not sure that I feel bad for these girls. And to be honest with you, I think they look really great with the plastic surgery. I would even argue better for the bubble that they're adhering to. But I also agree with Stephanie that they didn't need it in the first place. So how do we find that balance? Because as an autistic woman, when I hear people say things like, oh, you don't need that plastic surgery, you're beautiful the way you are, this is an image of your ancestors, this is your legacy, these are your genetics. That is so true. I agree with you. But also, we're social creatures. We're playing within constructs. We're playing within bubbles. Certain bubbles, to excel in them, you have to play a certain scripted game. So for me, it can feel like a little bit of a fib when people tell me to be authentic when I know for a fact that that's not what they mean to say.
Most autistic pretty girls were not born pretty, okay? They were born probably not very cute. And it is their special interest to be pretty. They have put in a ton of time, effort, money into their aesthetics because for them, that is their special interest. That's why I talk about it. Trust me, when most of us come home, we want to be in our comfy clothes. We want our hair a certain way. We want to scrub off our makeup. We want to have a clean face, but we realize we live in a world, in a society where our looks matter. So our special interest is realizing how can we improve our looks so that our life improves. That's our special interest. The same way that somebody else's special interest might be outer space. That's why I talk about it, because most of us have taken ourselves from an ugly duckling into a swan. And that is our big thing that we're interested in life. It is our hobby, is improving our aesthetics. So when I'm talking about autistic pretty girls, they have put in a ton of effort. They deserve their flowers, okay? And they deserve to have content for them too.
So as an autistic person, I'm not sure that other people are hearing it the same way I am, but I know for a fact that authenticity is not generally accepted nor wanted by even other autistic people. We don't want people to be their authentic selves. We want you to be able to come to work and do your job. We want you to be able to show up and follow the rules. We want you to be able to be unique and diverse and challenge status quos, but also for the betterment of people. Sometimes authentic selves can be worse for people. So I think it sounds confusing to me. When I hear judgment of people masking or playing a game in order to excel in society, sometimes I think of The Devil Wears Prada and how Miranda actually kind of has a point that in order to make it in this beauty industry that is ruthless, there is an expectation of behavior. If you don't want to play that game, then I think you're right to be Anne Hathaway, who moves away from that bubble and goes to look for something else, her joy. Ultimately, your joy is going to come in different forms, but a lot of these people who are playing these social games, they're on that journey. They're figuring it out. And yes, maybe getting plastic surgery will lead to their joy, and maybe it won't, but we don't know. And so to put that judgment on them, that you feel bad for them or that you pity them, feels really disingenuous to me, but I don't think that's the intention of the content that I see on the internet, or specifically Stephanie's video. I think she's working through her own image issues, and that's what her content really is about. And I think she's trying to figure out where she, belongs in the world and what she should get done or what she shouldn't get done.
If you want to look in the mirror and love the face that you see looking back at you, and you want to stop hating yourself and stop feeling this urge to fight your face, you need to understand why you have that face. How can you possibly love something that you have zero knowledge about? Your face, your features, yes, I'm talking to you, it was not an accident. It wasn't just luck of the draw. Your facial features were handed down to you in a very specific way. Since learning about my ancestry, I now know that the reason that I have hooded eyes is likely because a lot of my ancestors came from Central and Northern Europe. And you know what is a very common eye shape to have in these places? You guessed it, hooded eyes. Look at the singer Björk. She's from Iceland, and look at her eye shape, hooded. Renee Zellweger, her family comes from Norway and Switzerland, and see those eyes? Hooded. Believe it or not, your eye shape, far from being just pretty or ugly, is actually caused by your ancestors' bodies genetically adapting to their environment. Your eye shape yes you, was literally forged through your ancestors' bloodlines for centuries. Now, we all look different for obvious reasons, and we need to use a little bit of common sense when discussing these topics, but one theory as to why hooded eyes are so common for us folk who originated in these countries is because for a lot of the year, these countries are literally covered in snow. And you know what happens when the sun comes out after it snows? You get blinded. It's bloody bright. The sun reflects off the snow and your body responds by squinting your eyes to protect your retina. So if your ancestors lived in this kind of climate, after a time, it is likely that their eyes would have adapted and evolved to handle the light better, hence having permanently hooded eyes. It's a protection mechanism, and you can kind of apply this logic to any of your own facial features. When you remove yourself from our utterly ridiculous beauty standards for just 1 second and take a step back and look at your face logically, I think you'll find new appreciation for yourself and the way you look.
I want to get to the point where I think it should be neutral. Whether you get plastic surgery or not, I don't think it should matter. If you don't like your family's nose and your past genetics, get rid of it. If you like it, keep it. I just feel like this pressure we put on people while trying to say that we love them for their authentic selves. Well, what if their authentic selves was getting plastic surgery and now you're pitting them in a video that like 1 million people will see? It sounds like a fib. So, okay, let's talk about that. In life, we play games. Social games. Beauty standards play into those social games. Men also play into expectations of beauty standards. So this isn't exactly gendered. I don't think there's anything wrong with showing up and presenting in a particular way if you're adhering to the expectation of the bubble. But if you really feel like it's destroying you, if you really feel like you're not happy, then maybe find a new bubble. Now, look, I think if we asked ourselves honestly, if we could get plastic surgery and guarantee that would make our life better and we would look prettier or we would feel more like ourselves, would we do it? I think most people would do it. I think a lot of people think of plastic surgery as like truly permanent or something that's sad. You'll hear men say, like, even when it comes to simple things like makeup, like take her swimming before you marry her.
And for just over a year now, all doing good. But when I see her without her lashes, eyebrows, no makeup on, I realize she's just not it.
As if to say that she's like faking what she looks like because of makeup. I just feel like all of these things are not good for us. I feel like we should deconstruct all of it and ask ourselves, how can we get to the place where makeup, fashion, and plastic surgery are neutral?
I'm going to be really honest with you and tell you that pretty privilege and having a special interest in looking good is probably one of the reasons why I've been able to do so well in life as an autistic woman. Obviously, this isn't the case for everyone, but I've seen this in other autistic women, that the ones that are quite successful or the ones that seem to have their life together are the ones that have pretty privilege or at least have a special interest in kind of looking good. I really don't think that I would have got the jobs that I did or the opportunities that I did or get the partner that I did if I didn't have pretty privilege, because otherwise I would be so socially awkward, and the only thing going for me would be like people would just see my social awkwardness first, but instead they see someone that's put together or they see my pretty privilege. And obviously I'm not pretty to everyone, but I definitely think it's played a factor. And this is one of the reasons why so many autistic women or people with ADHD or just neurodivergent women in general go through a phase where they're obsessed with fashion or they're obsessed with makeup, because it really helps us mask and like just be who we need to be to kind of get ahead. And you should never underestimate the effect that it has on other people of just looking good and being put together. The funny thing is that once I went through my unmasking thing, I feel like I look even more put together now, but I just know that pretty privilege is one of the reasons why I've been able to excel. If you look at the research, like attractiveness is like one of the reasons why so many people are offered a job or offered a place on a course.
Where can we get to the point where when getting a nose job, you're celebrated instead of frowned upon? Or where keeping your natural nose is celebrated instead of frowned upon? I'm a Syrian, and in my background, a lot of my family members get their noses done. That's no problem. I think that's great. When I was 18, I also asked the doctor about getting my nose done. I decided not to get my nose done, and I did struggle with my facial features. I heard my whole life people said, oh, you're a man. Oh, you must be trans. You must be all these things. Joke's on you. I am a man. I understand I have more masculine features. And in this video that Stephanie created, she even kind of mentioned the Roman nose, or you look like a statue. And that's the comments I get my whole life. Like, oh my God, Brittany, you look like a statue. Love that, girls. Love it. But also, there's nothing wrong with me also wanting a different form. Now, I decided not to get a nose job. There are two things that I'm definitely going to get done in my life, but none of them are a nose job. And I think that's kind of interesting. You know, and I say definitely going to get done, but who knows what future me will do. My nose, I decided, looks better natural than any plastic surgeon could guarantee me me an outcome. If a plastic surgeon can guarantee me an outcome, maybe I would do it, but I'm not convinced. And so I'm good with my natural nose, right? In the same way that I'm good with my natural hair. I think I look better with curly hair than straight hair, even though society is always telling me to straighten my hair. Even though people leave comments in my comment sections like, oh, Brittany looks like she hasn't bathed or showered, or like her curly hair's so messy. I know better than what the comment section does. I know better than what society knows about my looks. I know I look better with my nose and hair than I'm gonna look if I get a Brazilian blowout or if I go get a nose job. You know, right now the technology isn't there to convince me. And so I am happy with this vessel that I didn't even choose, by the way. I didn't choose this vessel. That's why we get to have our freedom in changing it if we want to. And second of all, there's nothing wrong with wanting something different. Stephanie's video, I looked at the comment section. People loved this video. So obviously people need to hear this, that keeping your authentic features, you know, is about family history. But again, coming from an Assyrian background where people get their noses done, I don't know. It doesn't seem that deep. But of course, it's also powerful to keep your natural nose, but also why is it powerful to keep your natural nose if it's neutral? Because you're always doing it in contrary to the bubble. So whether you keep your natural nose to send the middle finger to the bubble for even judging you for it, or if you get plastic surgery to fit in, you're still living your life surrounded by the bubble and for the bubble. Pop the bubble and do it for you. Pop the bubble and get that nose job for you. Pop the bubble and keep your nose for you. I just feel like putting down people who get plastic surgery or being pitying towards them is just as bad as being pitying towards people who keep their natural looks instead of getting quote enhanced. I feel like at the end of the day, as an autistic person, I am a little exhausted about hearing people tell me that like your authentic self is what we want something authentic, but your psychology doesn't. The point I'm trying to point out is that you're not a bad person for being human. We're like little evolved animals on a planet. And even if you deconstructed it, what's wrong with liking these posts that aren't quote natural or authentic, right? There might not be anything wrong with it as long as it's not adding negativity to your life. Humans are so funny, and I think we just give ourselves way too much credit and also beat ourselves up for no reason. I just feel like sometimes when I watch content on the internet, I wish it was more about being joyful, about the uniqueness and the era of your life that you're in and how you're experiencing beauty and standards, while also telling people that, hey, you have to play certain social games whether you like it or not. Yellow teeth and white teeth, same thing. White teeth, not natural. Yellow teeth, natural. And yet we whiten our teeth because yellow teeth sends a bad signal to people's brains that you have stinky breath, that you're not hygienic, that you're not organized, that you might be even doing drugs. Like there is a negative association because of marketing, whether we like it or not. So again, when you tell people be your authentic self, I think as an autistic person who sees the scripts pretty well, it feels disingenuous. I think it's people working through their own stagnation, their own deconstruction of beauty, their own problems, I guess. I think at the end of the day, when you watch content, let people go on the journey, let like Stephanie go on her journey. I think that's beautiful, but remind you that like you're not on the same journey, that like you're already good with how you look. And now it's about making decisions to mask. So change how you are to fit in, or actually enhance yourself because you think it'd look better. So let's talk about that. So now the question is, how can I be authentic and mask? And when is masking good for me? And when is it bad for me?
I no longer champion unmasking, at least not how I used to. So let's get into it. So when I originally wrote the unmasking process, my entire goal was to get people to understand that if they just unmask and were able to be themselves, then they would be able to relieve some of the trauma they've experienced. They can live their best lives and all of that. But the reality is that unmasking, especially when you have other marginalized identities, is often not safe and can cultivate the same trauma that you're trying to get away from. So I had to change my approach. Now, I believe that there are 4 different types of people when it comes to masking. It's going to be people that are retreating, and those are people that are afraid to come out of their shell. They don't want to show themselves. There are people that resist, and these are people that are activists. They are actively fighting for themselves, the rights of others in their spaces. And then we have our rebels. Those are people that have said, F the system. I'm here to let y'all know what's wrong with it, and I'm not trying to align with anything that you're trying to do. And then there are those people that have reframed how they see their lives, and they understand that sometimes being completely separate for the system or unmasking in the system is actually not going to be safe with them. So the goal is not to always live your life just unmask. Why? Because the reality is that it's not safe. And while that is sad as hell, it's the reality. Now we can go through and try to find balance in our lives, try to get to a place where we don't have to mask in the majority of spaces. But that's how I approach it. So when people ask me, where's the unmasking process? Why have you taken it down? I've taken it down because I've had to rework it to make sure that it centers those who are the most marginalized. Because unfortunately, people that look like me, people that are queer, people that are, hell, anything that's not a white male, are left out of these conversations when we talk about how dangerous it is to unmask.
Obviously, masking is a tool autistic people use to fit in, and when we come home, we take it off and we feel like, oh, finally. But also, there's a part of our masking that's also a lot of fun for us, that's also a tool for us, that's also used universally with neurotypicals. They just don't call it masking. I think they call it playing the game. Like, you show up to work, you wear a nice suit. I see it on alpha channels all the time where it's like, you want to be an alpha male? Get a suit. They have their own standard of showing up and playing a game and dressing a particular way and getting a particular fade. But when women do it, here are other women saying, I feel bad they had to get plastic surgery. I feel bad they felt pressured to get plastic surgery. Don't feel bad for them. Feel joyful for them that they're one step closer to marketing themselves in a way that makes sense in the bubble they're adhering to. Like, at the end of the day, again, if you're doing it for the right reasons, I think it doesn't matter. And sometimes those right reasons can be the bag. Let's talk about money, because I'm a money-making autistic girl and I love doing what it takes to make the bag. Not because I pick money over my joy, but because my joy coincides with how I make money. If I have to figure out ways to show up on stream that, signal familiarity to people that wouldn't normally click on my videos, I'll do it. Or format my videos in a particular way so people find it more digestible, cool, I'll do it. Considering the unemployment rates of autistic people, it can be very difficult for them to understand wanting to be their authentic self versus making the bag versus masking versus doing things because society says we should do them. Deconstruct it all. Do it for the bag in a way that coincides with your joy, right? Who cares? Mask if it helps you move through your day. Unmask if it works with your joy. I just think the way we're having this conversation can feel really disingenuous because it is contradictory to a lived experience.
What you have to realize about autistic women and autistic masking is that a lot of the time, like, the way we present ourselves with our makeup and our hair done and, like, not looking like we are autistic enough or that autistic, it is part of the mask. I created this bitch. I have grown up thinking that I was so flawed to my core that I had no other currency that I could control other than how I looked. And I'm now 35 years old and I'm trying to unpack feeling that that is my only currency is my appearance, and that I have to make sure that I am conventionally attractive as possible and put all this effort into my appearance so that I am passable in society, and then it backfires on me and then I'm not autistic enough. I feel like I get protected in out in the real world by presenting myself this way. I'm in a privileged position as an autistic woman to be able to highly mask at the same time as it's so harmful to me and nearly killing me. In some ways it is a privilege, but this is created.
In my personal lived experience, when people say be your authentic self, what they're saying is make me feel like I'm experiencing your authentic self. They don't want your authentic self. They want to experience what they perceive as your authentic self. And so in a way, when people say that, they still want you to mask. Because again, we don't know what people's authentic self is. And I do think your authentic self could include plastic surgery. And so to say to a person you don't even know, like a celebrity, oh, I feel bad they felt pressured to do XYZ, when you don't even know, they might be showing you their authentic self and you're like, that's not it. But what is your authentic self? Who is that person? Why is the internet owed it? Why is your job owed it? It's ironic that we talk about how you show up to work. You don't need to be your authentic self. You need to make that bag. But the moment celebrities are being criticized as not being authentic enough, we forget they're at work. I just feel like it's so unnecessary to judge these people for their actions when we know we're human and we do it for a reason. We need to learn to talk about ideas without going after people. And I really hope that I did it in this video here. I hope Stephanie doesn't feel attacked, because at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, we are nature. And if birds have to contend with their colors and their moves, then we certainly are going to have to contend as well. I think sometimes humans want to separate themselves from nature. We're better than the animals. We are animals, kids. And like any other animal, we got a peacock. Whether we like it or not, people are going to judge us for our feathers. All of this to say, can you love yourself and still want plastic surgery? Yes. Can you be autistic, mask, and play to the script and still be joyful? Yes. Be your authentic self, but never at the expense of yourself. And ultimately, regardless of where people are on their journey, just make sure you know where you are on yours. Because all of us are susceptible to marketing, content creators, news outlets, and we're just overall, human, and we're flawed, and we're gonna fall for narratives that aren't even ours to begin with. There's nothing wrong with getting plastic surgery. There's nothing wrong with not getting plastic surgery. And at the end of the day, moralizing it is always gonna be a problem for me. And given that misogyny is on the rise more than ever, I think it's our job to remember to comfort women through these changes they make. Even if it was for the patriarchy or internalized misogyny, shaming them further for getting it done isn't going to be helpful. Ultimately, I don't think that was Stephanie's intention, which I think is very important to pay attention to. I really do think she has really good intentions, but ultimately, the road to hell is paved in good intentions. And so maybe that thought process is one we should deconstruct. And so maybe Stephanie does it, maybe her audience does it, maybe you do it, but ultimately I know that's what I'm going to sit with. I want to deconstruct and I want to work on how I think about these things, because I want to make sure that I'm always doing things for the right reasons. And I also want to make sure that I show up in the world that signals to people why I'm here and how serious I am about why I am here. Because ultimately, whether I like it or not, some people are not going to take me as seriously as long as that twin bed stays behind me. And maybe they shouldn't. Maybe they should deconstruct that. Maybe they should ask themselves why that twin bed matters. But I can't wait for the world to figure it out, because I'm going to be here for a very short time. And I will reach success, whatever that means, even if that means getting rid of that twin size bed. Because ultimately, it is not that deep.